Major League schedule.
It's true. I hear that. Yeah. You wonder what these guys are thinking, right? Okay. Simin Chavav Sif Sif Gimel. We're talking about the end of Daven. We're talking about Kaddish. I'm sorry, Kaddish Yosim. So im yesh bebeis haknesses gam yortzeit. So let's say you have in shul, you have an oval and you have a yortzeit. As I am a ben shiva who katan. So if the one sitting shiva is a minor, right? He's a katan. Shahila kol yimei shiva lebeis haknesses, and he doesn't have a minion, so he's going to shul. Yesh la yortzeit kaddish echad. The yortzeit just gets one kaddish. So like we said yesterday, we don't do these things anymore. So that's why it's not. That's why this is not familiar. If there's a bunch of yard sites, each one gets its own kaddish. Afilu im a cotton, shehu ben shiva yitchul legamri, and even a cotton, even if the cotton is who's during shiva, he'll be pushed off legamri. Meaning yard sites have more of a kadima than shiva, at least for one kaddish. Maybe yesh ben shloishim, and let's say there's somebody that is in shloishim, yesh legamkin kaddish, but he also gets one kaddish. Oh, yesh harbe ben shloishim, but let's say there's many people in shloishim, ena cotton ben shiva nitchem machmosan legamri, so then the cotton ben shiva does not get pushed off legamri. Vim hu gadol, and if he's a gadol, she'ena haylach kol shiva lebeis hakneses, that he doesn't go the whole shiva to shul, afal pi shemispalo lebeis of a minyan, even though he's davening in his house or the minyan, he come welcome kishabah b'shabbos lebeis hakneses. Aimer Kala Kadeshim, he gets all the Kadeshim. Maybe Yesham Yartzeit, if it's a Yartzeit, Aimer Gam Kain Kala Kadeshim, he also says all the Kadeshim. Lavad Kaddish Echad, Yatilu Olav Gairul, except for one Kaddish, then he does a Gairul. Bachkishin is Batal Mimenu Hashiva, Al Yedei Arega, but when they're Mavatal Shiva, because of Yom Tov, right? We know Yom Tov is Mavatal Shiva. Oy Shemes Ava Beregel, or let's say his father Daven on Yom Tov. Azai yeshli din katan, then he has a din of a katan, kiman sheyachal leilo v'esakneset b'chol yom, because then he could go to shul every day, because that's what he's supposed to do. Fine. Ben Shiva Dalit, Ben Shiva katan, let's say somebody who's in Shiva is a katan, who Ben Shiva gadol b'Shabbos, k'shabala v'esakneses, and a Ben Shiva, but he's over bar mitzvah. Shavim v'kedeshim, then they're equal. If yesh gam yard side, and it was also a yard side, who nitchem machmas gadol, then the gadol in Shiva gets priority. Therefore, the gadol has a kaddish echad more than the cotton. Dahainu a kaddish hayatzarach a cotton losses la yardside. That's the kaddish that the tzarach that cotton has to give to the yardside. Hey, yardside v'chein ben shloishim, a yardside or a ben shloishim kaidmin l'shar avelim shein v'sei chashana, come before the avelim that are in the year. But he should give some kadeshim. And though you should be noying to give him the kaddish to rabbanon. The gama kaddish alachar aleinu, and give him the kaddish after aleinu, which is really the main one. Yeah, la yartzar le ben shloishim, give it to the yartzar le ben shloishim. Ushar kadeshim, the shar avelim, give the other kadeshim, the other avelim. Im yeshnam the minyan kadeshim, if they're there for the minyan of the counting of the kadeshim, right? So basically. The shloishim really has kadima, but he should give it out. He should be generous with it. Yartzeit uben ivav, right? That's what ivav. Yartzeit uben shloishim hechad deika ravacha, right? So if you have a yartzeit and you have a ben shloishim where there's this ravacha literally means space, where there's space for them to say a kaddish. So ben shloishim kaidim. So the shloishim goes first, and the yartzeit only gets one kaddish. Like we said, there's more priority for shloishim. If there's a lot of yardzeites, each one gets its own. Even though the ben shloishim gets pushed off completely, because he says it the next day. A yardzeit in the yardzeit, it's either today or bust, right? If he doesn't do it today, then he's not going to get anything. So therefore, that's why he gets something. Zayin, if there's two avelim equal, yatilu gairul b'neim, they make a raffle. We shall Garal Lemer Arvis, and the one who wins the raffle for Myram, Yesh Lashani, Keneged Ze Kaddish, Echad Shachris Beloy Garal. Then he gets one Kaddish, meaning they offset each other. He gets Myrav, he gets one Kaddish for Shachris. So the Kaddish Ashlishi, Yatiru Garal, the third Kaddish, they make a Garal. V'chenev Yeshbam Harbe. There's a lot. Gamkin Matilin Garal, Yosef for a Garal. We shall Garal, Lo Yove, Oid Besech Garal, at Shayam Kulam, meaning whoever wins the Gairul doesn't get to be in the next round of the Gairul because he already got his Kaddish. Right, so he's out. Ches. Hatoishav Kaidim Lo Ereach. Somebody who lives in town, and this one I never understood because what happened to Achnos Orchim, but I guess that's not somebody who lives in town has a right to say his Kaddish. So Hatoishav Kaidim Lo Ereach. Somebody who lives in town, somebody who lives in town comes before a guest. It ain't a Taich Shiva unless the guy is in Shiva. Yahrzeit,
Does
Taishav,
that mean the guy
Yahrzeit.
has to membership or not necessarily?
Oh, that's a big question, right? So that's a big question. How do you define living in the town? Pashtus is it has to be membership, right? That's what it seems, right? I mean, yeah. I don't know if they had membership in the way back when. I imagine in Europe they did. I'm saying before that. Yahrzeit Taishav, a Yahrzeit Areach. If you have a Yahrzeit of a Taishav and a Yahrzeit Areach, Ein La Areach Klum, then the guest gets nothing. And Shloshim Taishav, if you have one that lives in the town as a Shloshim, I Taich Hashana Taishav, a Yahrzeit Areach, and somebody in the year is a Taishav, and the Yahrzeit, the guest has a Yahrzeit, Yesh Areach Kaddish Echad, he gets only one. Vim Yesh Yahrzeit Taishav, if the one living in the city has Yahrzeit, Uben Shloshim Taishav, and the Shloshim is also Taishav, a Yahrzeit Areach, and they also have a Yahrzeit who's a guest, Yesh Gamkin Loireach Kaddish Echad, then he also gets one Kaddish. Ve'ena Yochel Yahrzeit HaTaishav Loy, and the Taishav can't say to him, Ani Kaidem. He can't say, I'll go first. Ki Yaimar, Lavi Didach Kashkel, Ben Shloshim. You're not taking it from you. You're taking it from the Ben Shloshim. Meaning, even though theoretically you could say, 1 second, it's one Yahrzeit again, another Yahrzeit. He said, no, you have the Shloshim guy that's getting messed up. The Yamar Yahrzeit Taishav Kaddish Rishon, and the Taishav, the one that has the Yahrzeit as a Taishav, says the first Kaddish, or Yahrzeit Areach Kaddish Sheni, Uben Shloshim Kaddish Lishi, and the Shloshim says Kaddish Lishi. Yes, Areach Ben Shloshim v'Taishav Teich Hashana Shavim. A guest in Shloshim and a Taishav. A guest in the Shloshim and a Shana from the who lives in the town. Then they're equal. Yeah. Good. Yahrzeit Taishav of Ben Shloshim Areach, but the opposite. Yahrzeit is a Taishav, and the Shloshim is a Areach. Yomer Taishav Kaddish Rishon B'Sheni. Then the one who lives in the city gets the first two Kadeshim, Areach Shlishi, and the guest gets the third. Yud Aleph Areach B'Seich Hashana. So the guest B'Seich Hashana Yesh like Kaddish Echad gets one Kaddish B'Seich Avelim Teshavim B'Seich Hashana. He gets one Kaddish amongst the ones of the Avelim who are Teich Tashana. Meaning, if there's people in Shloshim and Yahrzeit and all that, then he doesn't get anything. But if there's only people Teich Tashana left, and he's a guest, then he gets one. Yud Beis, Taishav Nikra Le'inyin Zeh. So how do you define a Taishav? Kol sheyesh lo kan diras keva. If he has a set dira, that's where he lives. Afal pi she'ena pereya mas, even if he doesn't pay taxes, that's not membership. That's taxes for the city. Oishu Perea Kan Mas, or he pays tax, Alpha Pisha in the Darkan. Let's say he pays tax, but he doesn't live here. Like all the guys living in Florida, half the year, all that for the taxes. Ubishaba, Lakan, Makam Achar Lemer Kaddish, Achar Abba Ve'imoy, Shayu Daram Khan. Let's say it's a child who's coming to visit his parents' hometown. He doesn't live here, but his parents live there. Even though they lived here, since he doesn't live here, he doesn't pay taxes, he doesn't have a din of a taisha. Which is interesting because he has a Yerusha, right? And that Yerusha did pay taxes, because if he didn't have Yerusha, meaning if he would have a bigger Yerusha if they didn't pay taxes. But I guess it doesn't work like that. So a balabayas he hired a rebbe, or he has a helper. If they're single, right? So then nikroim kan teshavim. They're called teshavim, even though they really don't live here, but they're hired by this guy. So they're called Teshuvim. But if they have wives someplace else, then they're like guests here. Meaning, since they're married and their wives live someplace else, so they're considered guests. Yeshiva, and somebody who learns in yeshiva, and he has to have a malamed that's hired by lots of balabatim. Afal even though they have wives in another place, dinam teshavim, their din is just like teshavim because they're there. They're basically employed by the tzibur. Let's say somebody has a yosem living in his house, and even if he's getting paid for having the yosem, so if the yosem doesn't have a father and a mother, then he's considered a taishav, even though he's not from this city, but he's boarding by somebody. He has a father and mother in another place. Even if they're there, even if they're just doing it for tzedakah, then he has a din of a guest because he has a father and a mother someplace else. So then, even though he's living here, so he's considered a guest. That's what we're supposed to get up to, right?
Yes, after Yud Beis.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Thank you very much. Everybody should have a fine night.
Okay, thank you.
Because
I just stopped the recording.
Yeah.